Movies. Oh, yeah, babies. What is crapping in party peoples? Welcome to BrassReel Tonight, where I talk about all the news and chatter and everything that's coming out to the big screen and everything that's coming out at home to stream. Yeah, I'm trying to get that tagline down. All right, so I'm going to try to, I think what I'm going to go for is that everything that's coming out on the big screen and at home to stream. I think that's good. That sounds tight. Anyways, how's everybody doing today? Hope you are doing well. Had a little meeting with one of my co-writers for a film project I'm working on right now, and got a little bit of stuff accomplished last night. But we also watched Blood Red Sky. I don't know if you guys have heard about that or seen that on Netflix coming out, but it was an original by them, and it's a cool premise. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Train to Busan, but it's basically just about them vampires being on a plane instead of zombies being on a train. Pretty cool premise where this lady's getting on a plane with her son, and the whole time you're figuring out that maybe something's up with this girl. They kind of go back and forth between past times and now, and you realize that, oh, she's a vampire, but she's harnessing it. She's keeping it under control. And then some stuff happens on this plane where it gets hijacked, and all this is in the trailer, but they make it out to look like it's going to be sort of a vengeance movie, sort of she's going to get her son now because she gets separated from him and something happens to her. And instead of it being like someone trying to get their son from the bad guys, it's a vampire trying to get her son back from the bad guys. So it puts a little twist on it. However, I thought it was going to be a little something that it turned out to be. Don't get me wrong. I should never expect anything going into films like that. I should always just keep an open mind. That's my fault partly. But I do feel like that it would have been better if it would have been what I was wanting, because it is a little bit of a movie that's like I said, a revenge deal where she's trying to get her son back on this plane, but she's a vampire. Sorry, I've got something in my eye and it won't. Oh, I know what it is. There we go. That's better. She's a vampire on this plane. She's trying to get her son back, and it just does way more stuff that was kind of stereotypical to other vampire movies, if that makes any sense. And I was wanting something to be a little bit different in this. Like I said, I kind of wanted it to be that sort of like Ransom, but on a plane, but she's a vampire. I thought that would have been a really cool idea, and I wish that's what it would have been. And it kind of was that. It just added some other stuff that was sort of stereotypical in the vampire vein and stuff you're used to seeing in a lot of vampire movies. So, and that right, I thought it was kind of disappointing, but it's half foreign language and half English. And I recommend, if you're going to watch this, watch it with the subtitles. And I'm saying because Netflix on my account, it automatically dubbed it. So I'm watching when the people are speaking a foreign language, I'm watching them being dubbed and it's still English speaking over them. And to me, that takes me out of it. I'd rather see the subtitles and then see the people speaking English. But I'm not going to say that I enjoy a lot of foreign films that are all subtitles, because for me, movies are a visual experience half the time. And if I'm having to read, and it's not that I don't read, I do read a lot. But when I'm watching a movie, if I'm reading script and text at the bottom of the screen, to me, it takes me away from what the director was trying to achieve visually, if that makes any sense. So again, Pan's Labyrinth, I've been able to watch that and enjoy it. But to me, it's like, why would you want me to read the bottom of the screen when this movie is so visually based? I just think it defeats its own little goal. This one, it's different because it's not foreign language the whole time at all. In fact, it's no different than like in a Bond movie. If you see somebody speaking a foreign language in a Bond movie, they show the subtitles at the bottom. That's about how much it happens in this, but it was dubbed at points. So it was like, that takes me out of it a little bit. And the voiceovers that some of them were doing over the dubbing, like for the kid especially, oh boy, it was silly. It took me out of it. Even Andrew and I looked at each other a couple times and started laughing. But anyways, I just wanted to tell you I saw that. If you guys are interested in seeing it, it's not as good as I thought it was going to be honest with you. The girl that's in it, though, I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she does a phenomenal job. She does an excellent job as the main lead, the vampire girl. And again, that's not a secret. You know she's a vampire. That's part of the plot. Sorry, just had to take a little break there for a second. Get a little. Of course, you know, every time you start the stream, you either get something in your throat and you got a cough, or you just all of a sudden get really thirsty. And that just happened to me, getting really thirsty all of a sudden. Well, there's a decent amount of new movie news to go on today, guys. I'm not going to waste time talking about what I watched last night and all the little nitpicks of a movie that I didn't even think that was that great. Let's get into some news. First off, actually, I got a little something funny to show y'all. Have y'all seen the movie Luca, the Pixar movie? So this is the poster of Luca, and it was all right. Honestly, it was, to me, it wasn't quite up to Pixar standards. But anyways, I'm getting off track. This poster has been out for a while, and if you guys have watched Loki on Disney Plus, somebody made this poster, which I think is hilarious. So obviously, it looks just like Luca, but it's Loki, and it's got Owen Wilson at the bottom, Loki in the middle, and Sylvie at the top, where it's, you know, the Luca poster was these three guys riding a motorcycle. Right here, they're riding a jet ski because that was Owen Wilson's little thing in there. It was kind of funny. Anyways, I got a kick out of that. Thought you guys might get a kick out of it. Thought I'd share that with y'all. So enough of the little funnies that I had there. So I talked about this the other day. The Last Duel is a movie coming out with Matt Damon, Adam Driver, and Ben Affleck, and it's directed by Ridley Scott. Now, right there, I knew that was like, oh, that's pretty cool that these guys are in it. This was something that was known from the beginning, and I missed over it. But Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are the screenwriters on The Last Duel. Like, they wrote the screenplay with this one other girl, and I'm not trying to leave her out, but it's just like, this is what grabbed my attention, because if you guys remember, these were the same two dudes, the same good old boys that we had back in the day that wrote Good Will Hunting. And that knocked everybody off of its rocker. Nobody knew what to expect out of that. We're like, wow, not only is this a great movie, but it's written by these two young guys. And like now, that sort of paved their way into the industry. If you guys remember, it didn't pave their way into the industry. They were already in the industry, but once they did that, they got Oscars for it, and they kind of could start choosing their roles and doing whatever they want. And they've pretty much been on top since. I'd say Matt Damon has had a little bit better of a run than Ben Affleck. As far as consistently, Ben Affleck is back on top again for sure. He's just had some issues, you know, some personal issues that we all have, personal issues and shit like that. But I love Affleck. I'm a huge Ben Affleck fan. You know, you were the bomb in Phantoms, yo. For any Jay and Silent Bob fans out there, you know that one. But I was just amazed to hear that these guys are actually writing it for Ridley Scott. And look, that says a lot. If Ridley Scott is going to allow you two guys to write the screenplay for a movie that I'm going to do, I mean, Ridley doesn't play. He's not the kind of guy that's just going to do anything. So the fact that he's teaming up with Ben and Matt, they must have come up with something really good. And it is based on something real. It's definitely based on something that's come out before in the past. Excuse me, that's based on something it was the Last Duel that was sanctioned like over in that time, in the medieval times. And it was based on a man assaulting a woman who I guess is Matt Damon's wife in this movie, and nobody believes her. And so much to the fact that they're saying that she's lying, and they're going to burn her at the stake, all because she got, you know, assaulted by a man. And it's definitely shining a light on some things that are that way today. And they definitely want to make sure that we're not forgetting about things that have been happening for not just now, but centuries. So, I mean, yeah, there's some good stuff behind the film, but the fact that these two guys wrote it, man, I don't know. I was already interested in it because it's Ridley Scott, but this raises a whole nother level of interest for me just because it's like, dang, guys, look at y'all. So you go, boy. So good for those guys. I'm just, like I said, y'all may have known this, but I just found that out today. And that's just me. Sometimes I'm reading so much news and going through so much stuff and trying to figure some stuff out that I can miss over just one little tiny tidbit that could be like the most important thing that might reel me in, you know? So I got to be better about that. Speaking of filmmakers, though, and some of the greatest out there, Steven Spielberg, I don't know if you guys know, he's been working on a movie that the title's been, I guess, released a little while back, but I just found out about it today again, called The Fablemans. Now, this is a semi-autobiographical film about his life. Now, the characters are going to be fictional as far as their names, but they're all based on someone in some fashion or format. I think that's pretty cool. Steven Spielberg is arguably the most successful director in Hollywood. Maybe the most well-known, probably the most powerful, probably the most respected, probably the most influential. I mean, the guy has definitely made, we're not talking about a handful of blockbusters. We're talking about a catalog of just blockbusters, films that changed the world. People started making movies because of his films. Well, he's definitely added all these, he's signed up on cast for his movie and he's added all these actors. Now, I'm not familiar with some of these. I definitely know who Judd Hirsch is. I remember him from back in the day. I mean, he's been, what I actually first saw Judd Hirsch on growing up was Dear John. You guys remember that? Dear John. Anyways, so not going to be a Ready Player One film. It's not going to be a Jurassic Park or anything like that. But you got to remember, Spielberg makes what he wants, and he always does good at what he makes. You might like some of them better than others, but I would dare say that Steven Spielberg has made, since he's been successful after Jaws, that he's actually made a bad movie. You might like them some of them better than others, and some of them might not have been your interest or anything like that. But I mean, think about this. When he was working on Jurassic Park, as soon as Jurassic Park was like done filming and they were editing it and he was like putting final touches on that, he was heading overseas to film Schindler's List. Both of those movies came out in the same year. That's crazy. And that's not, I mean, and again, those are just two of us. And not to mention that he's directed a ton of just massive successful hits, but he's also produced things like Goonies and Back to the Future, Poltergeist. So, I mean, Transformers, as much as you guys, and I agree that that franchise has gone off the rails at some point with Michael Bay, the first one was good and he launched that. So I'm excited to see what's up with this movie. I want to see what his life was about. I want to see where he gets a little bit of his vision and his appreciation, because like I said, he's got a pretty good grip on a lot of different genres. He's done horror, he's done action, he's done comedy, he's done romance, he's done historical stuff. I mean, futuristic sci-fi. Like, I mean, there's pretty much nothing the guy can't touch as far as a genre is concerned. And I want to know where all that comes from. I want to know why he is the way he is. And I think this will be really interesting to see the semi-autobiographical, man, I can't say that word today, the semi-autobiographical version of his life, which I think would be true enough. So what do you guys think? Excited about old Spielberg's story? I am. A little bit of MCU news. The famous and gorgeous, talented Emilia Clarke has just announced a couple days ago, and I, again, didn't find out about this till late last night. She is joining the MCU. And you guys might remember her from Game of Thrones as Daenerys. She was the mother of dragons. Now, I liked Game of Thrones, but I loved her in Game of Thrones. She was something else. But she's definitely joined the MCU, and she's going to be in The Secret Invasion. Now, that's a series coming out on Disney Plus, and that's going to be starring Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn. I don't know if you guys remember Ben Mendelsohn. He was the guy that played the Skrull in Captain Marvel, the green guy. In fact, let me pull up a little picture of him right here. So that's him on the left playing the Skrull. But this is a pretty big story arc in the comic books. Now, the Skrulls can be bad, but they're not inherently bad, if that makes any sense. Like, they're not born bad people, but there are plenty of groups of Skrulls that do a lot of crazy things, and they do have a lot more power, and they are aliens, and they have access to technology and ships and things like that humans don't. So there's things like in Sword that are being set up. I don't know if you remember. I think it was I can't remember at the end of what movie it was. Maybe it was at the end of Far From Home, but Nick Fury was up in space at the Sword. Like, Sword is like the next shield, but it's like covering space or protecting the galaxy instead of the world. And those characters that he's hiding on that ship that he's on up in space, those are like good Skrulls, but there are bad Skrulls that come to Earth. And in fact, if you guys saw X-Men Dark Phoenix, that those characters that were shapeshifters and turning into other people, those are supposed to be Skrulls. In the comic books, those are Skrulls. They didn't call them Skrulls in that, but that's what they are in the comics. And we will, but the way they look in this, like with Ben Mendelsohn, and he's got those like things on his chin and the ears, that's the way, I mean, that is exactly how the Skrulls look in the comics. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with this storyline, but she's confirmed that she's going to star in it, and it will be on Disney Plus. And I'm just wondering if she's going to be a Skrull or who she's going to be in the MCU. Is she going to be Sam Jackson's right-hand girl, you know, instead of Maria Hill? Is she going to be another villain that we don't know of, or another hero that's going to start joining the party? Because the Secret Invasion, like I said, is a big deal in the comic books. It's a huge crossover, which is kind of surprising to me that they're doing that on Disney Plus and not making it like an event film. Because I do think that we will get Sinister Six at some point. I do think we will get Secret Wars at some point, which those are all event films. I'm not sure what event film that Kang is leading up to, but I do feel like Kang is in so much control of the MCU that he might be even in control of some of the stuff that Thanos did. Like he might be the reason that the Thanos thing even sparked itself. Not saying that Thanos worked for him, but Kang the Conqueror and the time and all that, especially he's going to be the villain in Quantumania, and I don't think it's going to stop there. So I just think it's crazy that we're getting the Secret Invasion, but it's not going to be an event film. Like I said, in the comics, it's actually a pretty big deal because like Civil War was an event in the comics. House of M was an event in comics. Like I said, Secret War, which was way back in the day, back in like the 80s, that was an event film. So I'm just curious to see what's going to go on with this. If it'll be, you know, serious quality, or if it's going to be that, because like I said, the Disney Plus shows, the Marvel TV shows do have a little bit of this TV sheen to them that the movies don't have. I mean, as soon as you started watching Black Widow, and say what you will about Black Widow, some people liked it, some people didn't. But as soon as you started watching it, you could feel the difference of the MCU films and the shows, because we hadn't had a film in a while, you know, and we had these shows already. So I'm just hoping that, kind of the same way I'm feeling about the Batgirl show on HBO Max, I'm hoping that it doesn't take this sort of TV quality sheen on top of it that lessens the quality. And, you know, touching on a little bit of other Marvel news real quick, I think that something that's a little bit of a rumor, and I think we all want to see, and one, I definitely wanted to see more of this guy, the Red Guardian and Black Widow. I think we all can agree that we loved Red Guardian. I think we can all agree we love David Harbour. He is an amazing actor. The guy has what it takes for sure. I think he hasn't what it takes to be a star, even though Hellboy didn't work out for him. I do feel like that he has what it takes to maybe not even like fully star, but maybe co-star in a film. And that's the thing that people are really excited about. I know I would go see this. Are we going to have a Captain America Red Guardian film? Right now, the fans are clamoring for it. And it's like because if you guys seen Black Widow, spoiler alert if you haven't, but this really isn't a spoiler. But one of the things David Harbour's character does in Black Widow is he always talks about how him and Captain America had this past, and how he talks about this. He's like, yo, we had this fight. And because he talks with a Russian accent. I don't know if that was a good Russian accent or not. We had this fight. Yeah, maybe not. But yeah, the whole movie, he keeps on referring to this fight. And I think it'd be really cool to see these guys in their own film. Like I said, his character was hilarious in the movie, but he was also a badass, but I didn't see enough of him. I wanted to see way more of that guy. And it's not that he wasn't even in the movie, because David Harbour was in the movie, but Red Guardian doing his thing and like in battle, I wanted to see more in that. And I do think it would be really cool to see Red Guardian coming up further in the MCU. And I do think we will see him some more. We are going to see Yelena more. We are going to see Miss Marvel coming in. We are going to have Doctor Strange, the multiverse. So let me back up. This is getting crazy. And I think it's getting crazy without people realizing it, even under their own like nose. The Loki thing was a bigger deal than I think people realize. Like what happened in the season finale of Loki was basically saying, hey guys, this is what's about to go down. And from the Loki ending of the season finale of Loki, going all the way up to February when Doctor Strange 2 comes out, the Multiverse of Madness, I believe that right now, let's say that Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness is the explosion. I think that Loki was the lighting of the fuse. The season finale of Loki was the lighting of the fuse of what's about to go down. And I can't remember when Ant-Man and the Wasp comes out again. I should have looked that up, and I probably could look it up if I tried, but I don't want to leave you guys hanging. I'd rather just keep the show rolling. But I know that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania comes out sooner than later. It's part of this phase for sure. So I just feel like that from now to then, we've got Shang-Chi coming out. We've got Eternals coming out. We've got Spider-Man No Way Home coming out, which there's a possibility that could be the biggest Marvel movie of all time. Now, I know what you're saying. It couldn't be, there's no way it could beat Endgame. And honestly, it might not beat Endgame because of pandemic reasons. But I feel like that what goes down with that film, you might have some of the biggest buzz happening with that movie ever, because it's the third installment in our Spider-Man trilogy we have in the MCU. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last, but it could be in the MCU. Not only is it that third installment in that, but it is something that's a major event happening in this movie that's leading up to even bigger events. So with all these characters coming in from different franchises, we already know Electro's in it. We already know that Doc Ock is in it. We already know that now that the Green Goblin has maybe been confirmed. Like they're saying that Willem Dafoe's in it. Who knows? Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield. I mean, all this stuff is going down that's been like, yeah, they're in it. So, I mean, what the hell is happening? Is Morbius going to connect with it? Because we saw Michael Keaton at the end of that trailer. And that's another thing. That's coming out. Venom's coming out by the end of this year. So it's like, all right, this is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Spider-Man show up in Venom or something happens at the end of Venom that connects it to the MCU somehow. Because Kevin Feige said with his own mouth, anything's possible now. Anything is possible. And I think that fans want to see it. And we're at a time that they've already done something so big like Endgame that they've got to really up the ante. They got to really up the ante. And they can't just do another big fight and brawl. They have to make a crazier reason of why they're fighting and brawling. So anyways, getting off on a tangent there, just saying there's a lot happening from here till next summer. I mean, a lot. I mean, we still have 3 more films, Marvel films this year, and Hawkeye's is going to start already by the end of the year. They've already said. So, I mean, look, I could keep going. I'm just pumped up. Super excited. So for the main topic of the hour, we just got the new trailer this morning for Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, we had a trailer for this for a little while, and it was just a teaser. And we saw some cool stuff with the Ecto-1, you know, driving around and doing some, we saw that there was this like chair that came out on the side. But man, this trailer definitely looked good. It looked like it had a lot of heart to it. Looked like it had a lot of mystery to it. And it's got me pumped. I'm stoked. Now, there's first glimpses of Dan Akroyd being in this. They say that there's glimpses of Bill Murray being in this, but I only saw Dan Akroyd in this little scene. This little shot I'm showing you right here is at the very end of the trailer. The phone's ringing in this bar. It looks like somebody picks it up and he says, "Hello, we're closed." And you can totally tell it's Dan Akroyd's voice. 100% it's Dan Akroyd's voice. And the only time I saw Bill Murray in the trailer was in a picture. They were looking at a picture of all the Ghostbusters back in the day. That's the only time that I actually saw Bill Murray in the trailer. And they've been hinting at a lot of stuff that Bill could be in it. I mean, Bill's been, his voice is in it. His voice is narrating it the whole time. You know, it's got Dan Akroyd's voice narrating as well. From what we understand, it's going to be based around Spangler's character. So that's Harold Ramis, who died. And these are his 2 kids, or his grandkids in this that we see, played by Finn Wolfhard. And I'm drawing a blank on that girl's name. I'm sorry. And we know Paul Rudd's going to be in it, but we barely even saw Paul Rudd in this trailer. I mean, I think we may have seen him once or twice, but we see way more of the family. We see way more of Finn Wolfhard and all that, and his sister. And what's really cool is this movie is directed by Jason Reitman. Now, Jason Reitman is Ivan Reitman's son. And Ivan was the guy who did the original Ghostbusters. So the fact that his son has taken over the reins, already there's a family and heartfelt connection there with who's taking over. Now, look, we had that other Ghostbusters film. I think it was called the tagline was like "Answer the Call" or something. It was bad movie with Chris Hemsworth in it, and it had the whole Saturday Night Live alum in there. It was a female version. The female version of it has nothing to do with why the movie was bad. I swear it has nothing to do with why the movie was bad. The movie was bad just because it was bad. It was bad writing. The jokes were stereotypical and cheesy. Chris Hemsworth was, I mean, he was there for eye candy. I mean, it was a silly film. There was a couple of funny moments between like Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, and a couple, Kate McKinnon, a couple. But personally, I don't think Leslie Jones is all that funny. I never really have. I just don't get her humor. It's nothing against her at all. I think she's cool. I'm sure she's really nice. I just never thought she was all that funny. I think there's plenty of girls that have been funny on Saturday Night Live, and those girls that I do normally like as comedians weren't even that funny in this movie and Ghostbusters, the girl one. So I don't even consider that one a part of it. This one being directed by Jason Reitman, Ivan's son, I think it has, like I said, a lot more heart to it. And it's going to be something that they understand what the original vision was. And look, you got to remember too, Papa Reitman is right over Jason Reitman's shoulder this whole time while he's making this. You know he's there. I wouldn't be surprised if Ivan's a co-producer of it. So he's getting a ton of advice. It's kind of like when George W. was in office. You know he was getting a lot of advice from Dad. Like, I think one of the funny things, it's really hilarious, and Harold and Kumar go to Guantanamo or escape from Guantanamo Bay when they break into George W. Bush's house, and George W. Bush is like smoking a bunch of pot, and they're like, "What are you doing? You smoke pot?" He's like, "Yeah, man, who doesn't?" Like, "Why do you make it illegal?" And George turns around and he's just like, "Oh man, you got to make Dad happy." To me, that was hilarious. And I feel like that's probably going on with Ghostbusters. I feel like that Ivan Reitman and Jason are there, and Jason's like, I am doing my own thing, but I got to make Dad happy and pleased with this, because that's sort of like a legacy to be taken on. And if he messes that up, I mean, that'd be pretty shitty to know that you messed up your dad's legacy that he left with two. Well, definitely the first Ghostbusters was one of the most beloved film of all times. I think the second one is just as good. A lot of people don't agree. It's different. It has its own separate little tone to it, a little bit more of a comedy, but I still think it's just as good. So we might see Dan Akroyd. I mean, we are going to see Dan Akroyd in there. I think it's very clear we're going to see him. We might see Bill Murray. There's always that talk of him being a ghost, which I think would be really awesome. We haven't seen him yet. So if he is a ghost in this, that'd be really cool. Or if he becomes a ghost, that'd be really cool. Maybe not. Who knows? But are you guys excited about Ghostbusters Afterlife? I know I am. Look at that picture right there. Just at the Ecto-1 in the garage and everything. I think it's going to be a really good story. From what I understand, they have a good script, good story. Paul Rudd's going to be hilarious in it. Finn Wolfhard's a great actor. He's turning out to be real good. But like I said, with this new trailer, not only did it still show the Ecto-1 and this little cool little like remote control thing that they were driving with it, and they've got the blasters, but it looked heartfelt. It looked like it had more to it than just banking on those things. It looked like there was something that you really were going to care about in this, and a sense of wonder and a little bit of mystery. So I'm stoked. I'm pumped up about it. I'm pretty sure everybody is. The movie's supposed to already be out last year if the pandemic wouldn't have hit. So that was sort of the main thing today. If you haven't seen that trailer, guys, go check that trailer out. You're going to dig it. It's really good. I've watched it like 3 or 4 times now. I mean, look, yesterday we got the Chucky trailer. Over the weekend, we got the Dexter trailer. We've getting more stuff. We've been getting more stuff before that. We got the Last Duel trailer. I mean, things are happening, guys. We've got a lot of stuff going on in movies again. Movies are back. And hopefully, with movies being back, that these guys can get their crap together. Sorry, my cursor was messing with me. Because look, I'm sick of this guy not being on the screen. Jason Voorhees has been gone too long. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a huge lawsuit going on between Horror Inc., which is Sean Cunningham. And Sean Cunningham is the guy who directed the first Friday the 13th, produced a lot of the ones after that. But him and Victor Miller, who was the guy who wrote the original script of Friday the 13th. All right, so feel me here on this. So the original script of Friday the 13th was written by Victor Miller, produced and directed by Sean Cunningham. They had no intentions of that movie becoming what it was. One, Jason's the only character of Jason that we see in that movie is a kid that was, we hear about a kid that was drowned by the counselors, that the counselors let him drown. And the only Jason we actually see is in a dream sequence at the end of him coming up out of the water and grabbing her the canoe. You know, that whole like scare scene at the very end, the stinger, as they call it in horror films. I mean, everybody knows that scene if you've seen Friday the 13th. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you might even know that scene. But that is a dream sequence. We don't see Jason in that movie. We don't see Jason until part 2. Hell, we don't even see the hockey mask until part 3. Now, if you guys know me, you know that Jason Voorhees is up there with Batman. Batman is my favorite character of all time. Definitely my favorite comic book character, but arguably my favorite character of all time. And Jason's right there. I mean, if Batman's here, Jason's like right here. And I don't know what it is. I just think there's something so fun about the character. I grew up in a town in Louisiana where it was a lot of country around us. I grew up going to different camps and stuff like that. I stayed at certain areas to where like it was very remnant of Friday the 13th and those. So anytime I watched those movies, not only did I relate with them and be like, oh shit, that reminds me of this. But then when I would go to these camps and stuff later, it would be like, oh my God, this reminds me of this movie. And I was one of those kids that liked to be scared in a weird way. Now, don't get me wrong. I didn't really want something to go down, but I enjoyed horror films as a kid. And yeah, it was tense. And sometimes I would like peek through I'd hold my shirt up, you know, and be like, oh, but I truly did enjoy them. I wasn't afraid. You know, people are like, that's going to scar him for life. No, that stuff doesn't happen to kids like that, in my opinion. At a certain age, you shouldn't be showing them that stuff. But if they're asking for it and they want to see it, and they want to see it again, it's obviously not bothering them. And I turned out all right, I guess. But for me, Jason, it got to the point to where he was not in the first one. The first movie was a very good whodunit type of deal. Who's doing these killings? And there's a twist at the end that works really well. It was original for the time. And then when you see Jason become the killer in part 2, it took a different role on, like the whole movie and tone became something else than it even started and what they had ever even planned on. So from then on out, Sean Cunningham was producing the Friday the 13th movies, which were all about Jason. The first Friday the 13th movie, which was written by Victor Miller, he didn't write the other ones. That movie was not about Jason. That movie was about the counselors. It was about Pamela Voorhees, the mom, who ends up, spoiler alert, she's the killer. So the reason this lawsuit happened between Horror Inc. and Victor Miller. Now, Horror Inc. is Sean Cunningham's company. Victor Miller is the writer of the original film. The reason this lawsuit exists is because Sean Cunningham produced the 2009 movie, the Friday the 13th movie, the remake, which I thought it was great. I loved that movie. It wasn't the best. It could have been a little better in my opinion, as far as I wish it was a little bit more horrific and a little scarier, but they did nail the tone of the film. And it's one of those ones, the more I watch it, the better it gets. I think it's like, all right, the more that time passes, the more Friday the 13th this movie becomes. So I really do love that movie. I think it was great. Well, with the success of that movie, Victor Miller got all mad. And he was like, look, this is not, I didn't know this movie was coming out like this. I should get some money from it. Well, nothing really ever came of that because remember, Victor Miller didn't create the character of Jason Voorhees as the guy in the hockey mask and the machete wielder who's running around killing counselors. He created the first story with Pamela Voorhees and the counselors, and she's killing them. Jason was a kid that was already dead and that was in a dream. That was it. No hockey mask, no stalking killer, nothing like that. So when this came out, the game, which was made by Sean Cunningham's company, and he had been making Friday the 13th movies, but at the time they had split off. So if you notice, like Jason 9, which is Friday the 13th, which is Jason Goes to Hell, it isn't called Friday the 13th. It's called Jason Goes to Hell. Then you had Freddy versus Jason. So at this point, he put this game out and called it Friday the 13th. Victor Miller, who wrote the original movie, which he owned the title of Friday the 13th, he wanted to sue Sean Cunningham and Horror Inc., which in turn put a halt on this game. We were all playing this game and loving it, and they were coming out with new maps and new downloadable content. This game was made for the fans. It's awesome. I still play it, and you still can play it, but it doesn't have massive servers fueling it anymore. Well, when that happened, it put a halt on Jason forever. So we haven't seen a movie since 2009, Jason. We had this game that came out a long time ago. I mean, this game was being advertised a long, long time ago. And they finally came out with it a long time ago. And people were still playing it. But Victor Miller has been having this lawsuit going because somebody owns the right to Jason. And he owns the right to. So Sean Cunningham owns the rights to the character of Jason Voorhees. But he can't use the term Friday the 13th or Camp Crystal Lake. Victor Miller owns the rights to the title Friday the 13th and Camp Crystal Lake. But nobody wants to see a movie there without Jason in it. You know what I mean? So, and honestly, I'd be okay with seeing another Jason movie that's not no Friday the 13th in it. You don't hear that title ever. I mean, Freddy versus Jason was great. I enjoyed it. Jason Goes to Hell. I will agree with you. It's not a great movie, but it was a good effort and it was something different. I enjoy it for its own reasons. But still, no Friday the 13th mention. No, that name's never used in that movie. And you still get an idea of some stuff. They did use Camp Crystal Lake in that movie, but I don't know. I think they may have just said it. I don't know if they ever showed like the sign or anything. So as we're going right now, I mean, this guy, he's in limbo. I don't know how long it's going to be until we see him. Well, just recently, Corey Feldman came out and said that it's over. The feud is over. And I'm like, what? The feud's over. This just came out today. You guys remember Corey Feldman back in the day with Corey Haim, God rest his soul, the two Coreys. But Corey Feldman was in Friday the 13th, part 4. And he was a little kid that ended up killing Jason. Part 4 is my favorite one. And when he killed Jason, he shaved his head and tried to mess with Jason. Look at Corey Feldman right there. And he starts hacking him away with a machete. And he's going, die, die. It's an awesome moment. Friday the 13th, part 4, which is called the final chapter, What a Ruse, is the best one in my opinion. It's the fan favorite. Most people agree that it's the most fun. It's got the creepiest elements. It's done the best. It's shot the best, directed the best. The woods and the camp and everything are the best in that one. Everybody just loves that one. Well, he's saying the feud's over. And again, I can't say that Corey Feldman is a huge source that you can rely on, but he knows a lot of people. And despite, him not being an actual news source, I think that he does have some connections to some of this. He talks to some of the people. He was in the movie. Tommy Jarvis is like the most famous character in Jason, outside of Jason, or in the Friday the 13th franchise. And they said the plan was to reboot him kind of like they did in Halloween 2018. So can you guys imagine that? That would have been pretty cool if we would have got a Friday the 13th with Jason 40 years later and Tommy 40 years later, and Corey Feldman would have been playing him, which that would have been cool. I just don't know how. I don't know. Corey's voice sometimes is, I love you, Corey. I'm not hating on you, but I'm just not sure how it would work. Maybe that's why they didn't make it work or let it work. But I thought that would be really cool to see that happen 40 years later. But I'm also getting tired of people jumping on that trend, canceling all the sequels. And just like, for me, I would actually like to see like either a sequel to the 2009 one, or I don't want to see a reboot of Jason again. I don't want to see like a camp of trying to introduce Jason for the first time again. I want it to start off like we know who Jason is. So either they could make sequels to the original movies or do a sequel to 2009. I'd honestly prefer to see a sequel to the 2009 one because I liked that Jason, for one. I thought Derek Mears did a good job. And then two, I think it'd be cool to pick up from the sort of lighthearted comedic side of that first one and make the sequel to the 2009 one way more dark. Just take a darker approach, get rid of some of the comedy, and really make Jason frightening again. Because Jason at one point was really scary. But just like all the icons, the more movies they're in, the more they become like the guy you're rooting for. And it's like, yeah, kill him. So I'd love it if Friday the 13th was back in action and the lawsuit was over. Nothing would make me happier. I need Jason back in my life. Look, I need this guy. I need this guy. Hell, I even need this guy. I'm showing the Jason X one. This is one of the ones they had in the video game, the Savini Jason, the Tom Savini Jason. Any of you horror fans out there know who Tom Savini is. This one was badass. But I mean, we've had so many incarnations of the character, and all of them are great. And the fact that we haven't had a new incarnation since 2009, I think is a shame. He's an American pop culture icon, in my opinion, not just a horror icon. He's a pop culture icon. There are people that have never seen those movies that know who that guy is. They know who Jason is. Never seen the movies, but they know who he is, and they're scared as shit of him. So come back, Jason, please. And Corey, man, I hope you're not lying, dude. I hope that the lawsuit is over. God, nothing would make me happy, because that means that the game would be back on too. That means that we'd have more new maps updated, which from what I understand, these maps are even built. Like they have the cyber Jason map, the Uber Jason or whatever. That'd be great to walk around in space and be able to play as him. Excuse me. All right. On to some next horror news. You guys remember The Exorcist? Some would say scariest movie ever made. Some would say the film that allowed horror to be horror. Some would say that this film truly scares them and is actually what turned them Christian. No shit. Some people say that. Well, Universal and Peacock just closed a $400 million deal to do an Exorcist trilogy. Now, when they say Universal and Peacock, I'm assuming they're meaning these movies are going to go straight to Peacock, because Universal owns NBC. Ellen Burstyn, I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she played the mother of Reagan in the original one. And Reagan is Linda Blair's character. Now, Linda Blair, if you don't remember her, which if you've seen The Exorcist, you do, but she played little Reagan who got possessed. Yeah, that's little Reagan right there as the demon, or possessed from the demon. But Ellen Burstyn's going to reprise her role as the mother. So this movie is going to do one of those ones that's taking place 40 years later, or however long ago this movie was made, just like Halloween 2018 did. Ironically enough, this movie is being directed by David Gordon Green, same guy who did 2000 Halloween, or the 2018 Halloween. So, and he's doing Halloween Kills coming out right now, and Halloween Ends, the third one to that one. So I'm not sure if he's doing all three of these films, or if that's sort of what he does now, because I'm not sure if you guys know this, but he actually wrote the new Halloween movies with Danny McBride, and Danny McBride is his good buddy. David Gordon Green is the guy on the right there. And David Gordon Green wrote and created Eastbound and Down, The Righteous Gemstones, which is out now. There's been some other stuff that the Fist Foot Way, or the Foot Fist Way. It's that Taekwondo movie. It's kind of like Napoleon Dynamite feeling, but it's got Danny McBride as a Taekwondo instructor. It's hilarious. But he's got that vibe to him, and he's obviously got some sort of deal with HBO Max, and which is why he had done all those shows in the past. But now this is going straight to Universal and Peacock, because the Halloween films are Universal movies. So they're very happy with what he's done with those movies. He's their new golden boy, it looks like. So what do you guys think about that? David Gordon Green doing a new Exorcist trilogy. I mean, I'm down. It takes place afterward. I'm not sure what they're going to do, if the demon is like trying to haunt the mother, or still trying to haunt people around her, if it's following her because of it wants possessing her daughter, so they got it out of, I don't know. William Friedkin, though, it's going to be hard to match up to this movie. Now, one of the reasons that the 2018 Halloween was so good and did so good, in my opinion, is because they involved John Carpenter with it. He was like a supervising producer or whatever like that, or a consulting producer. And he co-wrote the score, and he was a producer too, like an executive producer, but he actually consulted on stuff. So basically David Gordon Green said, when we went to John Carpenter with this, if he didn't like it, we scrapped it and we didn't go with it. We only put it into the story and into the script if he approved of it. So right there, that's saying something. I don't know if he's going to do the same thing with William Friedkin. William Friedkin has been known as being sort of a crazy dude in Hollywood, kind of like Stanley Kubrick. Like, can't be reasoned with at all. You can't change his mind, can't talk to him. In fact, even if you do, it makes him even more persistent on not doing what you're wanting him to do. And they don't need the rights to that from him, because William Peter Blatty is the guy who actually wrote The Exorcist, who actually directed the third Exorcist movie, which is pretty good. It's an interesting horror film. But if you guys haven't seen Exorcist 3, I'd recommend check that out. Little side note. But I don't think William Friedkin has any rights to The Exorcist, so I don't think that they can actually even do anything with that. I don't think they have to get his permission. With John Carpenter, Halloween was his baby. There was all these things and I think as a filmmaker, David Gordon Green wanted to be super respectful, and John Carpenter is respected in the industry. William Friedkin is not so respected. He still makes movies. Also made a movie called Bug with Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon. Awesome movie. Check that out. It's not what the cover looks like it's going to be at all. Just trust me. You need to watch that one. But I'm curious to see what's going to go on with this one. I definitely, like I said, David Gordon Green is a golden boy right now in Hollywood. And the fact that he's the guy behind the 2018 revival, reboot, whatever you want to call it, the Halloween 2018. And then him being behind this, like I said, that seems to be sort of his gig now. That's sort of what his line of work is to revamp horror franchises. So we'll see if he does it. I hope he does. Nothing would make me happier than to see it be good. Because like I said, Exorcist, it's a tough thing to live up to, man. Some people say, like I said, scariest movie of all time. And hitting on one little last thing then, guys. I was excited about this coming out. The only reason I was excited about it is because I want these movies to be as good as Indiana Jones or as fun as some of the Mummy movies were. Like, I like adventure movies like this. First Pirates of the Caribbean was good. You know, they got progressively worse after that, but I do think the first Pirates of the Caribbean was good. And that's what Disney does. They make movies off of their rides. Right now, at least that's what they're doing. And Jungle Cruise, I was excited about just because I wanted to see that, again, that safari-ish type adventure. Well, the reports are coming in that it can't hold up. It just ain't that good. Basically, The Rock is good in it. Emily Blunt's good in it. Let's face it, they're good in everything. But I don't think that this can hold up for them, because I guess what the reports are saying is that it's a 20-minute ride, and all it is looking at stuff. You know, at least Pirates of the Caribbean, you had interesting characters to work with. You had pirates, and there's some stories that can be developed out of those type of characters. I'm not so sure that them finding this villain in this movie that they're talking about having in it, and they're just on this jungle cruise, like, it seems like it's trying to be two Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's kind of what they're saying about it. It's copying off what they did in the past. It's nothing new. If it didn't have The Rock and Emily Blunt in it, nobody would even care about it. And that's probably true. Thing about Pirates of the Caribbean is that I think a lot of people would have gone to see that because of how renowned that ride is. And yeah, they got star power in it from Johnny Depp, but he wasn't as big as he became after those movies. He was big, but he wasn't as big as he really got after those movies. But Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley weren't really that big of stars when those movies came out. So the fact that they're having to sell like two of the biggest movie stars in the world, using them to sell this movie, just kind of makes me start to worry the more I think about it. Now that they're saying that it just wasn't enough and it just didn't pay off. I honestly was going to go see it in the theater. I'm probably going to wait now. And I can't pay $30 on for anything on Disney Premiere unless I got somebody else splitting it with me. I just can't pay $30 on my own. So I hope it is good. Maybe it'll change my mind, but as of right now, they're saying it's not all that. And it's got to be better than G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes G.I. Joe Origins. I can't tell y'all again how bad that movie was. Like, don't go see it. That franchise ended before it started. Nobody cares. Nobody plays with G.I. Joe toys anymore. It was just, and honestly, they could have revived the franchise if the movie would have been good, but it was shit. So hope Jungle Cruise isn't like that, but maybe it's going to be. We'll see. It can't be as bad as that though. And it's not even, they're saying that it's not even that bad. It's just, it's not what it should be. So thank you guys. That'll do it for today's episode. I appreciate y'all joining me again for another BrassReel Tonight. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you can help us make it to the top. Hit the like button too. That helps way more than you realize. I promise it does. Well, that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much again. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Join me again. I'm going to be trying 1 o'clock more and more and more. And I got another review coming out this weekend. So I'll just keep them coming. Please, y'all keep them coming too. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate all my 6 or 7 fans. Share it with your friends. Do whatever you can if you can. I appreciate y'all. Love you with all my heart. And we'll talk to y'all later tomorrow.